welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, and her name is Lauren Fay. She is an alcohol-free empowerment coach, Reiki master teacher, and sound bowl practitioner dedicated to helping ambitious women reclaim their freedom through elective and conscious sobriety. She employs a holistic coaching approach that guides women to embrace sobriety as a deeply personal and sacred journey of self-discovery. Her method unlocks confidence, unleashes ambition and intuition, and fosters lasting transformation aligned with one's true purpose, values, and authentic self. So, Lauren, that is so awesome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Of course, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on. You've got quite a background of experiences, and you do a whole lot of help and good for the world, especially women. So, can you give us a little bit of background, like what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I have a very colorful background for sure. One of those, I blow with the wind and I see where I land. And part of that is military upbringing. So we didn't move as much as maybe some military families did, but we moved enough where I grew up in Hawaii, moved to Japan, moved to Washington State. I call Washington State my home. And so there was that, like, lots of transition. And I feel like I just kind of have been on the move my whole life. And in that came, that, like, sense of ungroundedness where you don't really know where your roots are, don't really know where you're from, don't really know where you want to live. And then paired with that was, how do you establish a career if you're constantly on the move? Yeah. So for me, I actually went to school for news broadcasting and had all through high school, all through college, had my sights on being the next Katie Couric, and got my first job at a radio news station, and I didn't like it.
Oh, no.
And so it was like fresh out of college, what am I going to do now? And that's really an underlying theme in my whole story is, who am I? What is my purpose? What am I here to do? Yeah. And I just kind of filled the gaps for a while, got a corporate job that had a great salary, but sucked my soul right out of my body. Went into bartending, which pays great and obviously fueled my drinking habit. And then I really found purpose when I joined the fitness industry. And what I loved about that was, I was an athlete all through high school. I was a collegiate athlete. And so I got, I know what hard work is. I know what it is like to push yourself. I also know what it's like to be pushed and to be on a team and inspired by others. So I felt like this is it. I'm a teacher, and yet I was drinking more than I had drank my whole drinking career.
Oh, man.
And it was, it's very contradicting, right? Like, you're a fitness instructor, so you think one's very physically healthy, and yet, I was drinking alcohol every night. But it was my mental health that wasn't.
It balanced each other out.
Yeah, it was like I worked out all day, drank all night, and burned it off the next day through all my classes.
Exactly. That's exactly the logic that works.
I have to say, I do think that's why I fared okay in terms of, like, the physical repercussions of alcohol addiction, is because I was so meticulous about my nutrition and about my working out. So I think that helped keep her strong. But even that wasn't it for me. And I ended up moving to a city I didn't want to live in. And I got introduced to cocaine, which ended up being a part of my story. And it did exactly what it's designed to do, which is it took me down mentally. It's an upper that doesn't keep you up.
No.
Right? Yeah. So that's the long story of basically my physical body was okay through the alcohol, through the cocaine, but my mental health was not. And it got to the point where I knew I had to get sober. Yeah. It really became a matter of life or death for me. And again, not because it was going to kill me, but because my mental health was just so low that I didn't want to be alive anymore.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it scared me. Like, it scared me that I got to that point. And so I just honestly, like, made the decision to get sober. And to me, the big animal was the alcohol. I had no problem giving up the cocaine. The alcohol, though, was my identity. I was the red wine drinker. I was the martini drinker, the socialite. Like, who would I be without it? So that was the harder task. But I think that competitive nature really shined through, where I don't like to fail. I don't like rework. I can do hard things. I know how to push myself. And I've been sober ever since I made that decision.
That is so freaking cool. Congratulations. I'm super happy for you and super proud.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And how long ago was that?
That was 7.5 years ago.
Congratulations. 7.5 years. That is quite the achievement.
Yeah, it feels good. Thank you. I thank you so much, because even though it's normal for me now to be a sober woman, it still really is. It's a feat, and it's a huge accomplishment.
Oh, yeah. Almost every day you're rebranding yourself. You're re-energizing yourself. You're redoing everything to not be that person you were in the past. Absolutely. It's a lot. It is a lot. Would you say that you were addicted to alcohol? Or was it something that was like just such a big crutch, it might as well have been a prosthetic leg? Right. It's such an interesting question. And I know the word addict and addiction, well, addict's more of a label. Addiction is like the action, right? Or the state of being. There's so many ways to look at it. And I would say, yes, I was. Okay. I was a daily drinker. And if I wasn't drinking, we've heard this, I was thinking about drinking, or I was recovering from drinking. So even if my quantities weren't significant on a daily basis, it was a daily presence in my life. And it was the identity crisis of who would I be without it. And I think like an air quote normal drinker doesn't question who they would be if they stopped drinking alcohol. Right? Yeah, that's a really, really hard one to deal with, because an addiction alone can take many different faces, but whenever it is the identity of a person, it can be so much harder to get rid of, because, like you said, what's after that? And whenever, like, I can somewhat relate to that, because I'm heavily Irish, so I took pride in how much I could drink, because it was in my blood. It was supposed to be something that I could do. And then once I realized I have a huge problem with alcohol, I was like, this is not okay. But whenever it comes to alcohol and cocaine, that's a weird combination. Just to say that you were able to give up the cocaine first and easiest than the alcohol, but it kind of makes sense because you were the social drinker, and cocaine's not really socially acceptable nowadays. Yeah, exactly. And well, it was in the city I lived in. It was like it was like the party favor, which is why I got into it. But you're right. Like, I had been a drinker for much longer, like over a decade, and I had only done cocaine for like a year. So it just wasn't really big in my identity. And I was honestly kind of scared of it. And I also have a big fear of getting in trouble. So I was like, always like, am I going to get, like, I ended up in the ER multiple times. And I remember thinking, if I go, and like checked myself in, because I was having what I learned were panic attacks. But I thought I was dying from cocaine, right? And so I was like, can I go to the ER and tell them I'm on a illegal substance, or am I going to get arrested? Like, all of these fears were real for me, you know? But alcohol, you just, buy it off the shelf. There's so many options, way more options today even than I had back when I was drinking, like all the now pre-mixed things in cans. We didn't have that. I remember I saw a Buzzball billboard whenever I first got out of rehab, and I was like, I'm so glad they didn't have those whenever I was I'm so glad they didn't have what they have now, because it would have been, for me, my little sneaky action, was like the airplane bottles of wine. Now there's all sorts of things you can get into. And that's the scary part, right? Is that we're being introduced with different ways of getting alcohol and or other substances into our body, But with that, real quick, you said something that is super duper important that I think a lot of people should hear, and that is if you're on an illegal substance and you're afraid for your health, go seek help. They will help you. They don't care. They're not going to go, hey, 911, yeah, you know that person that's on drugs? Yeah, they're here. They're not going to do that.
No, they are going to help you, and bless the angels in the ER that, took care of me. Yeah. But I'm so glad that we get to share that with the audience, because to me, I honestly did not know.
Yeah. But that is a legitimate thing, that it's illegal, and I'm going to a place where I'm going to get help. So if I'm doing something illegal, couldn't they just turn me away or get me in trouble or something? But it's so far from the truth, and I'm so glad that you fought through those fears and went anyways. So big kudos to you on that.
Thanks. Yeah. Panic attacks are no joke. I didn't know what they were. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had panic attacks that have also landed me in the ER, not due to drugs, though, thankfully. But that's even scarier, right? Because I didn't have anything to blame it on.
Very true. That's a great point. I thought I knew why I was having it, and of course it was obviously related. But to go through that experience and really have nothing to point your finger at, I imagine would be very scary.
Yeah, and you're able to sit there now and be able to be like, oh yeah, I can see those patterns emerging before they happen. And that's kind of what you do with other people now, right? Especially other women?
Yeah, I do love to work with women because, again, alcohol really becomes an identity. And so I can relate to that identity as a woman. But what's so great about what I do now is it's kind of full circle. Like, I get to be a teacher again, and that's what I love so much. And it's all from lived experience.
Yeah. And that's the best kind of teacher too, because you're going to be the person that someone comes up and says, hey, I got a question. And you're going to be like, I don't know the answer to that because I didn't go through it. So I can give you my experience and see if that lines up.
Exactly, or I can give you a resource. And the women that I'm working with, I have to stay in my lane, right? So I'm not working with addiction or people that need medical detox or perhaps need to go to like a traditional treatment center. But these are women, they're business women, they're stay-at-home moms, whatever it might be, who it's like, I have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and it's self-declared, right?
Yeah.
And it's always that question of, what is after this? And so it's helping the woman really create a life where she can eliminate the alcohol. And that's, I think, why my 7.5 years has been without relapse, is I immediately went into structuring a life where alcohol just couldn't fit into it. And then it kind of just started to fall away. The first year was definitely wonky, don't get me wrong, but it's like, if that's what I like to teach women. It's like, let's actually not focus on the alcohol, and let's focus on things that realign with your values, that make you feel good, and then eventually you feel so good you don't want to bring back in the thing that makes you feel bad.
That's a really interesting way to look at it too, because we're sitting here dealing with a socially acceptable drug. Let's just admit it is a drug. And we're trying to find a socially acceptable way to essentially redefine, recreate a person. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to say, I'm too busy for literally anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this just doesn't work for me anymore. I'm too busy for hangovers.
Yeah.
I'm too busy to... like day drinking, and then you feel the tapering off, and you're just like, you have to nap. Like, I'm too busy for that, And I've had a significant amount of grief, of loss in 2025, and alcohol was never an option. It didn't even cross my mind as a viable solution to anything I was experiencing. It's like, if you're already feeling low, and you have the knowledge of alcohol being a depressant, like, why would you add that in?
Yeah.
Why make the hard harder? Of course, we don't know that when we're actively drinking, but it's once you know it, you can't unknow it. And then if you were to go back, it's just not as fun anymore, you know?
Whenever you say an unhealthy relationship with, some people might be asking, well, what does that look like? So what would you define an unhealthy relationship with alcohol?
That's a really great question, because I think a lot of people try to trick themselves out of having an unhealthy relationship to it by quantifying how much alcohol they're consuming.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't drink a bottle of wine a night, you know, that doesn't make me... But I'm like, but when you do consume it, are you fulfilled, satisfied? Are you feeling expansive? Are you motivated? Are you feeling like you have a pep in your step in the morning? And if we start to notice how it is trickling out into many areas of life, it doesn't actually become about the alcohol itself. It comes down to how alcohol is impacting your energy levels, your relationships, your family life, your career. And then that's like, yeah, that's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to me that I'm irritated with my kids in the morning because they're way happier than I am, you know? So it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those things is that it almost feels like that comfy weighted blanket, though, that I don't want to get out from in the mornings. You know, whenever I was actively drinking, it would be one of those things that I would drink, but to feel better, I would just need some hair of the dog. And problem solved. But, you know, there's only so many times that cycle can repeat until it just breaks. And you're really trying to help people get to the point to where it's like, hey, and I love that you said that it's self-declared. So you're not sitting there going like, hey, I see you have a problem because you're doing the things I used to do. So let me tell you what I did, kind of thing. I assume that you're asking them the clarifying questions, like, do you get mad at your children for being happy in the morning? Or do you plan your grocery trips around the liquor store? Kind of thing like that, right?
Exactly. Self-declared. And to your own understanding of what a problem is.
Ooh.
Is this a problem in your life? If you were to put on the blinders of anyone and anything around you, that may sway your interpretation of it.
Ooh. So how do you suggest someone do that, though?
Well, I really do think that it comes down to identifying, like, if I'm living in alignment with my values, you know, and for me, you know, I'm a sweet girl. I was a happy girl at one point, but I was like, gosh, I am just such a victim. I am in such a low self-pity mindset and a self-loathing mindset. And this isn't how I want to live my life. Like, I don't actually want to live my life being miserable. So what's making me miserable? And of course, I was blaming it on my job or number of dollars in the bank or where I lived. And it was like, cool, all of those things might be true. And the common denominator is I'm drinking alcohol every single day. I wonder if that's, contributing to the problem.
And I love how you did say every single day, because in my previous marriage, that is what was presented to me as, hey, you do have a problem because you are literally drinking every day. It may not be, like you said, a whole bottle of liquor or something like that. Literally, the definition of an alcoholic is someone that has an alcoholic beverage every day. And so it is kind of disheartening. I think a lot of people don't want that label of, oh, I'm a problem drinker or an alcoholic, because it comes with a lot of stigma.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to help break that stigma, because the alcohol is not so much the enemy, right? Because alcohol does have, it's a tool if used properly. But the thing is that it has been used as a weapon for so long that we also decided that, a weapon in my hand is better than a weapon in someone else's hand.
Yeah, you said two really good things in that share. One was using the word stigma and labels, which will shut someone down very quickly from changing their behaviors. And then the second, it being a tool. yes, like we have the intellect to know that there are a lot of negative repercussions of alcohol, but also as humans, we don't set out to hurt ourselves. Like it's not like we wake up every day and we're like, how can I hurt myself the most today? So to continue using something that we know is hurting us, it's also because we believe there's a part of it that is helping us, right? Yeah. There's something about it that is helping us. Maybe it's helping me lower my anxiety. Maybe it's helping me fall asleep at night. Maybe it makes me feel more confident in my relationship. Yeah. And we come up with those benefits, perceived benefits, and then they can outweigh the repercussions. So that's interesting because it really is a tool. And it does have a stigma. And so you're just kind of trapped between a rock and a hard place with those things. So
yeah. And it really, for me, it kind of came down to more of a pride and ego thing. Like, oh, I have to accept that this is a part of me. And then I kind of went, but I don't want that to be me. So that's whenever I kind of started digging into the values and stuff. But I had the privilege of going to a great rehab called the Men of Nehemiah. So for 9 months, I was taken out of society and placed into Bible class and training and all this. And so for me, it was totally different. But I was like, everyone always likes to say, I was the worst alcoholic ever. Like, I was pretty freaking bad, too, you know?
Badge of honor.
Yeah, like getting pulled over and then having a blood alcohol over 0.15 and then blowing into a BAC of 0.42 is like, hey, you should be in a coma, but I'm not. So it's really scary. But real quick, whenever we're talking about the stigma, that is the part that makes people kind of go like, oh, well, if they think that about that person and I'm that person, what does that make me? Right? Because for myself, I thought that I was a normal person. I thought I was like a normal Joe kind of dude, you know, and then next thing I know, I find myself in a rehab and it's not just for alcohol, you know. So it was kind of like, who am I? Because I thought I was good, but apparently I'm not because I'm an alcoholic. Did you have something kind of like that? Or do some of your clients go through things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely just speak for myself. I like to call it like I suffered in silence, and that was due to the stigma and the shame. You know, I was a smart kid, ambitious, could do anything she wanted to do, and I knew that I was not in a good place, and so it was embarrassing that, you know, I was in that place, and so I kind of hid it. I was a social drinker, but I also was a behind closed door drinker. And so I actually really did not like being publicly intoxicated. I would try to really manage my drinking, but as soon as I got home, you know, I would like watch TV and the next thing I know, the bottle of wine is gone or something like that. So the suffering in silence was because the shame and the stigma of, well, if I am an alcoholic, what does that say about me? I didn't want to tell people that I felt like I was struggling. Yeah. You know? And I also went to a treatment center, actually. Yeah. Yay. Yeah. I checked myself into one because, like I said at the very beginning of this conversation, I decided to get sober. And so for me, I'm like, so what do I need to do? And it was like, well, go to a treatment center. I didn't know of any other option, honestly. Yeah. But I'm glad I went because it dried me out for 21 days. And I don't think I ever had a 21-day streak of being alcohol-free.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's crazy what a place like that can do for someone.
Yeah. And while I was there, I did call myself an alcoholic because they informed me that I was one. And so I said, okay, I will embody that. And I wore that for a little while, actually. And to me, like in my mind, it was like, okay, cool. If I have this alcoholic disease, then I cannot drink alcohol. Yeah. And so it just was very cut and dry for me. And then as I progressed through my sobriety, I didn't like having the label. And so I dropped the label. But it did help me for a little while there. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the label is good for that specific purpose of going like, oh crap, I lost my identity. Who am I? Okay, found it.
Yeah.
And
okay,
then,
I'm an alcoholic.
yeah, and then it kind of gives that door to freedom of going like, oh, well, if this is who I am, like, what is past that door frame of everything? And it's, honestly, there's nothing different except we can't have alcohol.
And we feel good.
Yeah, and we feel good. It's great. And whenever you started your journey, what was one of the things that just completely blew you away about sobriety? That you were like, oh, I forgot about that. I was just going to say, for me, I have those moments to this day. I'll just be like, oh, hey, I forgot about that. Or I'll have a nostalgia moment that I completely forgot about, you know?
Yeah, I think that, quite honestly, if I'm being totally transparent, the first few months were just kind of weird. Okay, so where I didn't necessarily remember all the good things yet because I was still trying to learn how to be a human in a society that's lubricated by alcohol. I was still, you know, even if you don't require a medical detox, your body is still going to detox. Yeah. And so I was in the disrupted sleep patterns. You know, I was in like the weird energy burst patterns. So the first few months were kind of like, okay. The challenge for me was I wanted to take on the world, but I felt like a rock. And it was very confusing because I thought as soon as I stop these things, I'm going to feel really, really good. Oh. And you do. It just takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because it really, whenever I think back to it, it's kind of similar to mine. My only difference is that I literally had military training to do, and quote-unquote military training. For anyone out there that's going to be like, Minna Nehemiah is not the military, I know that. But
yes, it's the concept, yeah.
Yeah, but it was really interesting being able to go like, hey, like, I stopped this, why don't I feel better now? Yeah. And it was a lot of learning that there's been damage done to my nervous system, damage done to my brain, damage done to my body, damage done to literally any part of myself was in some way, shape, or form corrupted in a sense. Oh, sorry.
No, I agree. Like all of those things, we have to learn those things. You know, that it's not just flipping a switch. If we think about the fact that we're over consuming a poison every single day, and the fact that our organs, our cells, our blood have to literally work on overdrive to save itself from the poison every single day, then when we remove the poison, the body's just like, oh my God, I'm tired. Like, I just need a minute. Yeah. You know, and during that time is also when emotions are coming back online, right? It's when the brain is trying to like figure out how to exist with with all the neurotransmitters up there and all the pathways that we've carved. So it's whether or not you are abusing it quantity wise, if you're consuming something that's not meant to be in the body, there will be some level of repercussion and some level of corrective maintenance.
Yeah, and that's kind of the funny part too, is that people like to find the sweet spot, right? Because if I have just enough, it'll be just enough to get me through just enough. And the problem for me was that the tolerance just kept going up and up and up and up. And I kept finding more and more excuses to reach for my liquid courage, my tool, or whatever. And in fact, it was more along the lines of I had to start really fighting myself to be able to say I was ready to give it up. But it took a lot. And real quick for you, though, you are also a Reiki master teacher and do other things on top of that. So real quick, which one is your favorite way to re-energize yourself?
The best way that I re-energize myself is through ecstatic dance. Ooh. So really? I'm a big advocate in somatics. I'm a really big advocate in moving your body. So I'm also a yin yoga teacher, Kundalini yoga teacher.
Nice.
I just feel like, you know, alcohol just disconnects us from our body. Reiki is a gorgeous way to connect to love. Sound is a fantastic way to kind of send vibrational healing through the body. But there's something about movement to me that makes me feel alive. And that's the exact opposite of how I felt when I was drinking alcohol. I don't think I ever woke up and was like, I feel so alive today, you know? But when I was teaching fitness classes, I was feeling alive. Like, that was the 1 hour where I was just, you know, again, motivating the clients, and my energy was up. And I would feel so great. I would go celebrate with a drink. And then it would just suck the life force energy right out of me. But yeah, I think that moving your body, whether you're walking or shaking or dancing, is just a great way to come back to it, you know?
Yeah. There's an African proverb, I'm not sure if you know, it's movement is life.
Yeah,
and
there it is.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because whenever I don't want to move, moving around tends to actually make me feel better, you know?
Yeah, the stagnation, when things just get really stagnant, can exasperate the way we're feeling, and sometimes you just need to get outside and go for a walk.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to divorce your husband or or you know, sell your house. Maybe you just honestly need to go move your body.
Yeah, for sure. Moving someone's body is something that is simple-ish if you make it simple. And I like how you said that just getting up and going for a walk, because I know for myself, if I were to stagnate and just be in a little bit of a puddle or whatever of my self-pity, then if I had the thought of, a little bit of alcohol might make me feel better or might make this situation better, then I would go and do it. But if I were out walking and if I wasn't close to it, then it'd be a little bit more like, nah, maybe not.
Yeah. You know, something that I really experienced too, both while I was drinking and when I got sober, was because I was a behind closed door drinker, I was inside a lot, you know. And then the more I drank, the less I wanted to go out into the world. Like, I didn't want people to see me slosh. So that became the size of my world, you know, my studio apartment in the middle of the city. And when I got sober, there would be times where I would just be feeling really crunchy, you know, and I would realize, you haven't gone outside today. And so once again, like, that, my home was like the size of my world. And so to get out, and yes, to move your body, but also just to get into bigger space helps to let the energy not be so saturated in this small little body vessel that we live in.
And fresh air is always good for us, no matter what. And I know that they've done a lot of, maybe not a lot of, but there are studies out there that show nature and just being around nature can improve someone's mental health. So I think just being outside around a tree, like maybe go hug a tree, might make someone just go like, I don't need that bottle of liquor. Let's be real, if they're fighting that urge, they're probably not going to hug a tree and then think that the world's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we were cursing the sound of chirping birds while we were drinking, right? And then now in sobriety, we're like, oh, the birds are singing. Yeah.
And, oh, man, just, I don't think that there's anything I would trade for one of those mornings of just, like, even somewhat, like, okay, you know? Like, those mornings of, like, oh, yeah, like, that was a great night, and this, that, or another, and then it's like, oh, I don't feel like death, but not good. And it's just kind of like, I don't miss that. I don't
miss it either. And it doesn't mean that every single day in sobriety you feel like a rock star, you know. No. You get sick, you get worn out, you get run down, you get agitated, irritated. Like, you're still human. But it doesn't have the shame factor associated with it. So if I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling a little lethargic or less than energized, it's like, okay, maybe I need to take a nap today. But it's not it's not because I did something to myself the night before, you know, or have to, or like I'm beating myself up over how much I drank or anything like that. So
yeah.
Definitely want to manage expectations if anyone's listening and they want to get sober. Like, it's amazing, and you still are human.
Yeah.
With a body that's going to feel weird things.
Yeah. I think, now that you mentioned it, I think the only time I should compare myself to myself, especially, is whenever I'm looking from my sobriety aspect to my used to be drunk or high aspect, because it's like, looking back, usually a lot of the time, like you said, it's filled with shame, but it's also filled with the things I don't want. But it's also one of those times that it's kind of like a mirror where I'm seeing myself again, but then I can take that step back and be like, oh wait, that's not me. Woohoo! Like, I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think there's really anything I miss. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an alcohol-free empowerment coach. I have had so many opportunities where I could have consumed alcohol, even just a sip, to be part of the group conscious. Mm-hmm. To include, my beloved dog passed away last month, and his dad's brewery brewed a special beer in his honor. Aww. And I didn't even have a sip, not because I thought it was going to flip a switch and make me go back into my old ways, but because it was like, the principle is that I don't use alcohol anymore. I don't use it to celebrate. I don't use it to mourn. And so, like, could I have had it? Sure. Would it have made me an alcoholic? No, I don't think so. But I also feel very, like, proud of myself that I haven't had a sip of alcohol since I stopped drinking alcohol. And I didn't want to turn that over. And I knew my dog would understand. Like, he's like, you don't need to drink the beer, Mom, to celebrate me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just really, it is possible to have a life completely free from it. And I just can't think of any reason why I would want to go back to having it. And for those that do go back and they're able to regulate it and they're satisfied, like, that's super great. But I truly feel like I would maybe have a small reprieve where it's enjoyable, and then it would go back to the obsession of wanting it or thinking about it or planning my days around it. And I just don't want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary. Like, I'm right there with you. It's one of those things that, would it? I don't want to. It's not worth it. Like, that's right there is not worth it. It used to be one of those things, like, I don't know the answer to, so I might as well find out. But it's one of those, like, hey, I know a possibility, and it's one that I don't want. So, it's, like you said, there may be a very small time of saying, like, oh, hey, it's not as bad as I remembered. But it's honestly going to go south so fast because it's that those blinders, I would put them right back on and it would be like nothing ever changed. That's the scary part,
Yeah. And, earlier you asked if I ask my clients, like, the clarifying questions. And this is a great example of where we could utilize that, because when a woman comes to me and has declared she has a problem with alcohol, but then is insistent that she becomes like a moderate drinker, I ask why. You know, why? And, like, why is getting to the point where you can just have one so important to you? Why is making sure you have the glass of champagne to toast at your wedding so important to you? Because if you think about the intention behind a wedding, does it really involve alcohol? It shouldn't, right? And if that's the intention behind, like, some weddings, people, like, their intention is to get drunk,
Yeah.
So when we really peel it back, and it's like, eventually your answers are just not going to hold any weight.
Ooh.
And you might have to peel it back so many times until you get to the bottom of the rock, and you might have great reasons, and then it's finally just like, there's nothing here. There's nothing here.
The scary thing is, the only thing that I could think of that someone could say, I need to drink, is because they are already alcohol dependent.
Yeah.
That is the only time that someone should say, like, if I don't have it, I'll probably die. Because that is a literal thing. Like, you can die from going cold turkey on alcohol. And that's scary.
I think it's very important that we address that, because you can die from going cold turkey on alcohol. And if any of the listeners have reached the point of physical dependence, or you don't even know if you're at that point yet, better safe than sorry, a medical assistance is a non-negotiable for your life. and I can't believe, isn't that crazy that it's that intense?
Yeah, it really is. So before I actually went into rehab, I had to get tackled and essentially told, hey, you're either going to get help or you're all alone. And so I was like, you know what, fine. I'm tired, and so I did it. I was there for like a day, I think, and then I went into DTs and woke up in the hospital 4 days later, with my liver trying to fail on me. So it was.
So firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's if I were not in the hospital or medical facility at the time of my detox, I'd be dead, plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm. So I think everyone out there really does need, if you have a question, am I alcohol dependent? Go get help.
Yeah. Don't try to just chance it. Like, again, better safe than sorry. I didn't have this knowledge. I truly didn't know that. And so I was already like 2 or 3 days sober, or like alcohol-free sober, when I went to the treatment center. And during my intake, just because I had to wait for a bed to open, during my intake, she was like, wait, you're a daily drinker? Like, we need to put you on seizure watch. She was very, and I was like, wait, what? So again, I was fortunate that I didn't have that physical experience. That I had plenty of physical experiences, but not that extreme one. But I was completely unaware that it could be unsafe to just stop drinking.
Yep.
So I think I feel like I've just had a lot of luck, if we can call it luck. Like I slid under the radar when it came to legal things. I did okay physically, and yet I completely own that I was absolutely an alcoholic.
Yeah. Some people might say it's divine intervention. Some people may say it is luck. Some people may say it's just the human body being unimaginably good at what it does.
No, the body wants to stay alive.
It does.
Right? The body wants to be healthy. It doesn't understand why we're doing it to this, doing this to it every single day. But it's pretty resilient, and we can go and live good, free, healthy physical lives after this addiction.
Yeah. And I think that's the important part, is the happy, because so many people will sit there and be like, okay, well, I'm sober, so I'm healthy, but don't got the happy. Yeah. So what's the point?
Yeah.
So how do you suggest to your clients, like, find some happiness, because it's not that easy, is it? Like, just smile, be happy, you don't need your alcohol anymore, it's fine. It's not that easy to just smile sometimes, especially earlier in recovery, because it's like the only thing that made me, and see, that's a funny thing too, is that like early recovery was such a mess that it's hard to say, oh, well, this is what my thought pattern was, because it was so over the place that I didn't really have one.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, well, with the happy question, it's kind of like when someone who is not a problem drinker goes to a problem drinker and says, just stop drinking alcohol. It's like going to a not happy person and telling them to just be happy. I don't know. I'm not a psychotherapist. I don't know all of the things, so I'm not going to go there. But I do believe, first and foremost, before we reach for everything external that can maybe, air quote, give us happiness, it's an inside choice.
Ooh, yeah.
And I wanted to be happy. Was I happy right away? Probably not. Again, it was a weird time. Did I have to actively practice being happy over and over until it became more like a pattern in my body and more familiar? Yes. And so I kind of think of happiness as like a muscle that we can build. And maybe it starts off really, really weak because, again, we're at a deficit. We've had the alcohol addiction. But if you decide that you want it and you're willing to put in the level of effort required to get it, then there's no reason why it can't be yours.
Yeah, I love that. And happiness is a choice. And it's one of those choices that we can make, right? And a lot of people with alcohol, they feel like that choice was taken from them. And so I personally refer to addiction as the disease of choice, because it kind of takes away the addiction aspect. And whenever I lay it out this way, it kind of makes sense to people who don't grasp addiction.
Yeah.
And the disease of choice is saying, I had the choice to use or drink, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had the choice to do it again, and I did. And maybe I didn't the third time, but I did the fourth, and eventually I lose the choice, and it is something I have to do. And the only way out of it is to make that other choice, to say, I need help, or I just don't want it. And that choice can be really, really hard to find, you know?
Yeah.
So...
but it's always accessible to us, and that's like this concept of powerlessness. I completely concur that once I started consuming this highly addictive substance, I became addicted. I did exactly what it was designed to do. I got addicted to a highly addictive substance, and there was that feeling of like, you don't want to drink, but you're doing it anyways, and it's just such a bizarre. And again, if you haven't had this unhealthy relationship with alcohol, you'll have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You'll literally have
no... I don't want to drink. I don't want to do it.
It's like no one's holding a gun to your head. It's like this bottle is the freaking gun,
Yeah, you'll just sit there and just be like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it. Oh, no, I'm going to... No, I changed my mind. Yeah,
it's
it sucks.
so crazy. So I totally do sign off on that aspect of powerlessness. But innately, as humans, I don't believe that we are powerless, and that is because we have the power of choice.
Ew.
And it's just learning how to execute that power.
Ew.
So
I like
choice
that.
is always available. Yeah.
Sweet. So you use choice as an active tool to help, well, choose your path, right?
Absolutely. And we can break it down, like even just to put it into an example of alcohol, there's so many decision-making points along the way. First you have to decide to stand up off the couch, then you have to decide to walk to the kitchen, and then to put your hand on the fridge door, then to open the fridge door, reach in, grab it. You have to decide to open it. At any point along the way, you can change your mind, right?
Yeah.
Because the addictive alcohol liquid chemicals don't do anything until it's in your body. So you have so many points to make a choice to not put it in your body.
Yeah. See, and I don't know if, like, I think I had this thought in active addiction, and I'm sure I did, but it's one of those fleeting thoughts where it's like in and out. And for some reason, it just stuck right now where you said at any point I could have stopped. Because in the active addiction mind, it's like, oh, I want to drink. Got to go get the drink, whatever it takes to get the drink. And for me, it was bad enough that my shakes would stop if I got the bottle in my hand. Yeah. That was enough to stop the shakes, but it wasn't enough to keep them at bay, Yeah. But for some reason, it just actually hit that along the way to the store, I could have done a U-turn. Along the way to the kitchen, I could have just stopped in the dead of my tracks and just said, never mind. But I didn't.
Yeah. And again, I do believe there's a point where we get hijacked.
Yeah.
So yes, could have made a U-turn. I mean, how many times did I have the glass of wine in my hand and I didn't even remember opening the bottle? Not because I was blacked out, but because it was such a habit. It was muscle memory.
Yep.
Muscle memory. Yeah.
So, real quick, we are nearing the end of this episode, which sucks because this is a really good conversation. So I gotta ask, no pressure, of course. Do you think you'd like to be back on the show at some point for another episode?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. In fact, I'm currently writing a book.
Oh, are you?
It would be so fun to talk about that with your audience. I just feel like we hit on so many of the things, actually, and I just love having this conversation where this is the dialogue that's going out into the world.
Yeah.
So this was a very empowering conversation, and I like that so much.
Yeah, it is freaking amazing. I know I read the title of your book, but I forgot it. Can you reiterate it for me and the audience?
Yeah, it's called Blurred Lines,
Ooh.
My Reclamation of Power from Alcohol Addiction, P.S. You Are Not Powerless.
Oh.
And it's memoir, so it's storytelling, where I hope that the reader can interpret their own understanding and lessons from the storytelling.
Oh, nice. That's going to be super duper cool. Do you have a day on when you think it's going to be out, or?
It should be out. So we're summer 2025.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Sober Summer 2025.
Sober summer. And summer is a tough time to get sober, right?
Yep.
So hopefully this can go out into the world and support people.
Yeah. And I mean, spring break, summer break, then you got fall break, then you got winter break. I mean,
there's always a reason. I got sober in January, but it was 4th of July. That was my most uncomfortable experience.
Really?
So I had all those months of practice. I had my birthday. There was St. Patty's Day, which was when I got an alcohol concussion. Like, I had these, but it was 4th of July that I was like, is there really a point for this holiday other than drinking alcohol? I don't think so. And I did not know what to do with myself.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of those holidays where there's not a lot of stuff to do besides cook, drink, and blow stuff up.
Exactly.
Well, like, for me, I had my great-grandparents' wedding anniversary, but that was like the family get-together to do all those other things.
Yeah.
So I'm just so glad that you've made it through everything and that you are leading the way for a ton of other women to help get their life away from alcohol in an unhealthy manner. And I do also appreciate how you can acknowledge that there are moderate drinkers out there, and if they want to and can do it, more power to them. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, for me, no.
Yep, and that's what I appreciated also about this episode is I'm not out to villainize alcohol, and I know that you're not either. We can still call it a poison, because it is, I think that it's just very open-minded to be able to see all sides and to know where it can take someone. So why do some people get addicted and others don't? I don't know, but I'm here to help those that don't want to have the alcohol in their lives anymore.
So, real quick, do you have a website that anyone can go to if they need to get your help or anything like that?
Absolutely. They can find me at laurenfaycoaching.com.
Okay.
And Fay is F-A-Y.
Okay.
So laurenfaycoaching.com. I also have Instagram, Lauren Fay Coaching. I use it intermittently. But quite honestly, the best way to get in touch with me is to send me an email. You can do all that from the website. And I love to get on the phone with people. Not even a coaching call, not even a sales call, just honestly to talk. Because what I have found is sometimes that phone call is the first time a woman has ever admitted the problem out loud.
Oh, wow.
And I know what it's like to not admit it. And so to be able to hold that space, that safe space for someone is super rewarding for me.
Yeah.
So that's always that is available. My calendar is open to get on the call.
That is awesome. I'm so glad that you're able to do that for women out there. And real quick, for everyone out there that's watching, I think this is right. Is that right? Kind of, sort of?
Oh, yeah. So that is after the laurenfaycoaching.com is just a link to a masterclass, a 30-minute masterclass I have that's free. That just talks about the promise that's available to you as an alcohol-free human.
There you go.
We might be scared of it, and I just want to show that there's also a lot of really good that can come from it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that it's scary because it's... Whenever I heard I couldn't drink for the rest of my life, that threw me for a loop because it was like the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And like at the time, going into rehab was only 19. So not 19. Oh my Lord and lady. No, I was 29. Yeah, much better. Oh, I was not drinking since 9 years old. Oh, that would have been so bad. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. But, oh boy, what? I don't even remember. 29. Yeah, 29. I was 29 whenever it all went into
the forever
rehab.
statement.
Yeah, so 29, all those years, only 10 years really of drinking and stuff, and then the rest of it, like, those 10 years lasted forever. This other rest of my life is going to be even longer. I don't want to do that, but...
Yeah.
it does feel a lot better.
Yeah, it's, it's the fear of forever, it's the fear of the unknown, and it's also being the anomaly of a human that exists alcohol-free, again, in a society that advocates for it, is lubricated by it, and it almost is that reverse psychology of you belong if you drink, you don't belong if you don't. So, and we just have to rework all of those narratives.
Yeah, we really actually do. So you brought up something that was really important that I don't think I've asked another guest. And if I have, then I offer my apologies because my memory can be a little shoddy sometimes, lots of alcohol.
Yeah.
So whenever you're in a social setting and you have alcohol being either offered to you or it's around, especially if it's being offered, what do you say to politely decline it? Because some people get their feelings hurt if you decline their alcohol. Some people will question you and act like you're the super weird alien and now I have to pick your brain and figure out your life story and what made you so hurt that you don't want to drink alcohol, right?
Yeah. There's so many ways I can answer this because, like, for a woman that's empowered in her decision, she could just say, no thanks, I don't drink alcohol. That obviously opens the door for questioning. A woman or anyone who is just changing their relationship to alcohol might not feel really secure enough or strong enough to have to explain themselves, nor should they. Like, no one should be interrogated, but that just happens. Yep. And so this is where I always give clients permission to white lie, because it's like, until you feel very certain and very secure in your alcohol-free decision, you might have to just say, like, I'm on a fast right now, or I'm doing a cleanse, or I have a migraine, or I haven't been sleeping well, so I'm taking... And people usually don't question that. But if you just say, like, I'm not drinking alcohol, they're like, what? Why? My response is usually, no thanks, I'm going to go get a soda instead. So it's not only a no, but I'm already solving the problem. And telling them what I'm going to do. And then there's just nothing else that really needs to be said.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, hey, I see you're at the party and you don't got a drink. Hey. It's like, yeah, you're right. I don't, like, oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot my soda over there. And, I love it. It's something that I think that social pressure makes a lot of people relapse whenever they don't want to.
It does. Oh, it's so frustrating that that's the case. And just to anyone listening, if someone is giving you a hard time about not drinking alcohol, that is a them problem. It is not a you problem.
Yeah.
So you are the most important person in the room. Your decision is the most sacred decision you can make for yourself. And no one has the power to take that away from you.
Yep. And if someone is trying to get you to drink alcohol and they know that you have a problem with alcohol and are trying to stop drinking alcohol, maybe you should reevaluate the relationship with that person as well. So
yeah, I probably need to get new friends.
And that's another one
with
of the
love.
things. That's another one of the things that makes it really hard to get sober is that you pretty much lose your friends. If not all of them, a good portion of them. And the ones that do stick around think you're different, maybe not for the better, and it's just a whole bag of worms. It's a can.
There's so... you're right, we need a second episode.
Yep.
Just know that the ones who support you, love you, even if they don't understand, will stay. And the ones who don't will leave, and that's okay.
Yep.
There's always turnover. In the grand scheme of life, nature, there's always turnover, and when things depart, there's room for something new to come in.
Yep.
The majority of my friends today are from just being an alcohol-free woman, and there's only a few, literally, I can count on one hand, that are from my drinking days.
Yeah, that's good and awesome, and I'm just really glad that you have found the supportive family and friends that you need. And yeah, you're right. We are going to get a second episode because there's a lot here to unpack.
So much more to talk about.
So Lauren, we'll see you in the future, but I just have to say, first of all, congratulations on your sobriety time. Congratulations on helping out other women through everything that they are doing and just helping out anyone that comes to you for help because that's what the world needs,
Thank you. Better done together. Together we rise.
Yep.
Appreciate that. And congratulations on your sobriety, too.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And be sure to check out her website and also check out her book, Blurred Lines. So thank you everyone for listening. Check out her website. Check out her book whenever it's out. And as always, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. Have a great Friday or whenever you're listening to this. And much love. Schlan.